Injuries were the big storyline for the Chicago Bears entering this week. But the real problem against the Baltimore Ravens was the healthy regular starters not being good enough, especially on offense.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. On the show today, I want to go through this Bears loss to the Baltimore Ravens, where it just felt like a little bit of everything was going wrong. There's not necessarily one specific player or one specific position that doomed the rest, but Caleb Williams didn't play well enough. The offense as a whole had quite a drop-off. The defense had injuries, but even the healthy players on defense didn't play very well, and the Ravens played just better football than I think we might have expected them to. So we'll go through all of it, not necessarily to assign blame specifically, but just to kind of get a sense of how many different things went wrong here and how that adds up to a 30-16 loss on Sunday. I do think the bigger story of the two sides of the ball is this Bears offense and the ability to only put up 16 points against a Baltimore Ravens defense that ranks last in the NFL in points allowed is a much bigger concern for me than this Bears defense giving up 30 and maybe making life too easy for a backup quarterback on the other side. I came into this game with not very high expectations for the defense, given everything that was going into it, but much, much higher expectations for this Bears offense. And they are the group that underachieved so much more. We talked about it on Friday's podcast and also on Crossover Thursday as well. Like, this is a bad Ravens bad Ravens defense that this Bears offense needs to look sharp against. And perhaps the Ravens defense has gotten better than their ranking suggests, and they've gotten healthier, and they're coming off a bye week with some opportunity to improve. But they didn't go from the 32nd ranked defense to a top 5 defense in the NFL. And yet, with the way the Bears offense played against that defense, they looked like closer to a top 5 defense. But this again felt like Chicago's offense getting in its own way a lot more than Baltimore really slowing them down. I think a lot of it you can point at Caleb Williams, but I also think you can point at Ben Johnson not doing a good enough job in this game, the offensive line not doing a good enough job in this game, the running backs not as good as they've been, the receivers maybe not making as many plays. Like, this feels like an across-the-board offensive struggle that you don't even know where to start to pick up the pieces. I mean, I think we start with Caleb Williams, who has been in the crosshairs a lot since this game, and I do think he did not have a strong game. Like, he missed throws that you absolutely need him to make. And I think sometimes, people can say the expectations are too high, that, we shouldn't be expecting perfection from him, but like, there are throws when he's throwing from a clean pocket and it's not accurate. The ball's not where it needs to be. Now, in the fourth quarter, he makes some really nice throws. The one-handed catch by DJ Moore was ridiculous to even have that in a catchable range, and he threw a couple nice balls on the sideline. Like, we do see Caleb Williams make the big plays, but there's still too many plays in this game that are just inaccurate throws. Again, I'm not really seeing bad decision-making. That hasn't been a common thing at all for Caleb Williams. Like, even his interception in this game, the Rome Odunze, I think that's who he's throwing to, was open, but Caleb threw it a little bit late and didn't put enough on it, and so the pass ends up behind the receiver, which is where the cornerback was trailing in coverage, instead of in front of the receiver, so it would be away from the defender. Like, that was a bad ball placement by Caleb Williams, not a bad decision. Like, if he could throw that pass again with a more accurate throw, it's a great decision and a first down. Instead, it's an interception that really sets up another score for the Baltimore Ravens. But I don't think the offensive line did a very good job of picking up the blitz or even just generally holding up against the pass rush. It wasn't abysmal, but it wasn't as strong as it had been. And too often, blitzers were getting in his face. They either weren't picking them up properly or didn't have guys in the right position. I didn't think the running back pass protection was very good at all. And so that disrupted a lot of Caleb Williams' timing. And then, he threw the ball away quite a bit more and got a couple intentional groundings. One, I think, was definitely his fault, bad idea. The other one, it looks like Colston Loveland's running an option route. Caleb Williams expects him to break to the outside. He breaks to the inside. He throws to the outside. There's no receiver there. Intentional grounding. It gets the flag. It's not as much Caleb Williams' fault there, but still, that was one of many penalties, 11 in this game, that hurt the Bears on both sides of the ball. And all of a sudden, it puts your offense in longer down and distance situations that were harder to overcome, especially when your running game falls back down to earth, right? DeAndre Swift barely over 4 yards per carry in this game. Monangai couldn't get a ton going. Caleb had a nice scramble in there, but that was about it for the ground game. And it wasn't as though they were atrocious, just, not the 100-plus yard games that Swift had been putting together the last few weeks. And maybe that's where we come back to Ben Johnson a little bit here. They ran the ball. They handed off to Swift 11 times and Monangai 7 times. So and then 2 handoffs to DJ Moore, still 19, or excuse me, that's 20 handoffs compared to 38 pass attempts for Caleb Williams in this game. Plus, Caleb had 3 scrambles, so those would have been 3 more passing plays. So really, 41 pass plays to 20 running plays. Doesn't feel like the right mixture for how this offense had been having success in recent weeks, for Caleb struggling to get into a rhythm in the middle portion of this game. It started well, finished well, but in the middle, not doing so well. And if you could have him lean on the ground game a little bit more, it would have been nice to see that emphasized more, but they kept trying to throw. And in some parts because you're falling behind the sticks because of the penalties and because of the running success that you occasionally weren't having on some of those handoffs. So, I get it's not just, the solution is not just purely run the ball more, but I look at this Bears offense and I just don't see excuses for why they scored 16 points. If you're Ben Johnson, you've got your fully healthy offensive line, although, Theo Bennett is a known struggle here and there, but otherwise fully healthy offensive line, essentially fully healthy receivers minus Cole Kmet. Okay, I guess we could throw that in there, but then, backfield is all out there as well. That all the weapons are there. The offensive line is there. Caleb is there. They need to be better. And at some point, there's a coaching staff component of this okay, you're struggling to pick up the blitz. Where's your answer? What's your response? And eventually, the beginning of the fourth quarter, we see Caleb check into a screen pass to DeAndre Swift that goes for 25 yards. But it just felt like the Bears were slow to adjust to Baltimore winning up front consistently in the line of scrimmage. And then that makes Caleb Williams' job more difficult. And then he doesn't have a very good game. And the running game doesn't, on the offensive line. So it's I think, yes, Caleb didn't play well and everybody else didn't play well, which is a contrast to last week against the Saints when it felt like, hey, the running game's great, receivers are making plays, O-line's doing a good job, and Caleb was kind of struggling still. This was a game where it was Caleb's kind of struggling, but also offensive line's kind of struggling, running game isn't quite there. Rome Odunze still has a pass a game that she should be able to hold on to when it hits him in the hands or in the breadbasket, even if it might be a tough catch. You still see 7 targets to Olamide Zaccheaus, but you're only getting 33 yards out of him. You need playmakers to make more plays. You need to get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. DJ Moore makes that nice one-handed catch. It's finally nice to see him, get a little bit more involved, but he had kind of quiet game besides that. And you get Colston Loveland involved early in the play-action rollout game, and then you get away from it quite a bit over the course of the game. So this felt like one where Ben Johnson could have done better too, in addition to, it just felt like everybody on the offense really could have done better. And it's hard to pinpoint one specific thing because it just felt like everybody was below where they needed to be. And I don't know, you just chalked it up to a bad game plus the Ravens team coming off a bye. Maybe, but after a 4-game winning streak, I think our expectations were higher for good reason, knowing that this Ravens defense was not supposed to be very good. Whereas on the contrast, we knew that this Bears defense was going to be facing a good Ravens offense, even if Lamar Jackson didn't play. And so I was less surprised that they gave up 30 points and felt less like it was their fault, but certainly not a good defensive performance, just that the bar and the expectations were lower. So we'll take a look at where they struggled on that end and what role the injuries to all the cornerbacks played in those struggles next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss on any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. Because if you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections. And if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates. So you could pick more or less on Caleb Williams' passing yards, DeAndre Swift's rushing touchdowns, or any other game, any other sport, you name it. And if you're right, you're going to win big with PrizePicks. So download the PrizePicks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by Rugiet. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've heard them all before. It's just stress. I'm tired. It happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online with no awkward waiting rooms and no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private. So visit Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL to get 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet. Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL. And don't forget to use our promo code LockedOnNFL so they know we sent you. Rugiet. Stop making excuses and start making moves. I don't think there's any excuses on either side of the ball for the Chicago Bears. For as much as we talked about the injuries, and okay, no Jalen Johnson, no Tyreek Stevenson, no Kyler Gordon, on top of guys like Terrell Smith and Zay Frazier having already been out for the year, that's really your top 5 cornerbacks on your depth chart from the preseason are on injured reserve or out for this game. You're down 5 players at the cornerback position. You could imagine it's pretty tough to play defense without any of your top 5 cornerbacks. And yet I came away from just watching this Ravens game live, haven't had a chance to go back through the All-22 game yet, but like I came away feeling like, well, the cornerback play was not good. It certainly wasn't the biggest problem, and it didn't strike me as like this devastating issue that they just couldn't get under control. Like when I think about how the Ravens offense had success, it wasn't Tyler Huntley just attacking Nashawn Wright over and over again, or attacking Nick McLeod over and over again, or attacking Jalen Jones over and over again because there's your backup cornerback. We're going to put, Zay Flowers on him and just take advantage of that weak link as much as possible to create whatever easy matchups are there. Like, I think each of those guys gave up completions in this game, for sure. But it didn't feel like it was this consistent churn and burn of the same guys. It did feel like Tyler Huntley was having too easy of a time finding open space in a lot of zone coverage from this Bears defense. But a lot of what I point to for that starts with the total lack of pass rush. And then from there, we can blame coverage guys second, but they could not consistently disrupt Tyler Huntley. They sacked him twice, but they were not getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They tried blitzing a few times. The Ravens generally picked that up pretty well, and he could just sit back in the pocket, take his time, see the field, wait for one of these receivers to get open, and then throw it to him. And it was never these, I don't want to say never. I think they had one deep shot downfield, but for the most part, it was very rarely big time downfield passing where your cornerback is one-on-one and he loses at the checkpoint and you're like, oh man, he's just not good enough. They have a much better receiver there. Like outside of DeAndre Hopkins pushing off on Nashawn Wright on that third down, the pretty clear offensive pass interference. That's one of the few times where it was like, hey, one-on-one, their guy just beat your guy. Most of the rest of the time, it was Huntley drops back, in rhythm, takes a hitch, has a second, and then breaking free, in front of the safety and behind the slot cornerback, or whatever it is in the space to the corner route, like in front of the corner, but behind the linebacker, whatever it is, space in zone defense is where, if the pass rush had gotten some pressure on him, he wouldn't have had time to just sit, read, and pick it apart. But if you're sitting back and giving him 4 seconds every time against zone defense, he's probably going to be able to find some plays there. And that to me was the bigger issue, because I was going to say, because you didn't come into this game with injuries along the front seven there. Like, this was as healthy of a defensive line group as you could ask for coming into the game. And Montez Sweat gets the big sack early on, and you're like, hey, okay. And we can allow for the idea that, hey, you know what? Losing Dominique Robinson early on special teams, that might have been the opening kickoff now that I think about it. And then Shamar Turner leaves the game. And all of a sudden, like, if you look at your Bears defensive line depth chart, you had 3 healthy defensive ends at that point: Montez Sweat, Dayo Odeyingbo, and then Daniel Hardy. And so I will give some small amount of excuse or explanation that, hey, you know what? They couldn't keep the defensive ends quite as fresh as they would have liked to, because Odeyingbo played almost every play in this game. I think he sat for like 4 or 5 plays. So he's probably a little bit more gassed than he usually is. Montez Sweat played a lot. He only missed, I don't remember, 7, 8, 9, 10 plays. I don't know the exact numbers still in front of me, but like, he only missed a handful of plays in this game. So he was probably a little more gassed, not firing at 100% all game. They didn't use Daniel Hardy all that much because I don't think they trust him all that much. I think he played, 15 snaps-ish out of 65 or whatever it ended up being in this game. So I'm willing to excuse a tiny, tiny bit of maybe Sweat and Odeyingbo were gassed and couldn't get breathers, because the Ravens had some of these really long drives where you're on the field for 6, 8, 10 plays in a row, and that's really hard to do, especially at the defensive line with those big bodies trying to fight and be physical and run all at the same time. But like, the interior pass rush needs to be better. The blitzing needs to be better. Dennis Allen needs to find more ways to get home and get after the quarterback more consistently. Like, Grady Jarrett had that one really nice bull rush that disrupted Tyler Huntley and drove him into Gervon Dexter for that 1 sack. But it felt like that was pretty much it. And they got to find more. I mean, manufacture, whether that's on Ryan Poles to go add more or to activate Austin Booker off of injured reserve for this game, which they didn't. And I think the deadline to activate him is Tuesday, so they got to do that in the next couple of days. And that's going to be a little bit frustrating. Or it's Dennis Allen to, find different pass rushers. They dropped Montez Sweat into coverage at one point and brought Jaquan Brisker on a blitz or TJ Edwards on a blitz. Like, he's trying some stuff, but it's just not working. And that to me was the bigger problem than the corners, but the corners were certainly part of the problem. But it wasn't like, Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard were playing shutdown coverage. I mean, Byard dropped an easy interception, but Brisker gave up a few catches in this game as well. Like, it was, again, kind of an all-around issue. To their credit, they stopped Derrick Henry pretty well, held him to 3.4 yards per carry on 21 attempts. He punched in those 2 touchdowns, but it was Tyler Huntley's rushing, both on design runs and scrambles, that really killed him. And that backup running back, Mitchell, had the speed to get to the edge. The Bears just couldn't keep up with him there. And so, again, much like the offense, it's a little bit of like, hey, everything's going wrong. And yet, a lot of this was expected. Like, I was expecting the Bears defense to give up some points to the Ravens and that their cornerbacks might have some struggles covering these guys. Like, I think we went in this game thinking it might be a shootout where somebody's going to need to score 35 to win this game, that you might give up 30. Like, that was a little bit more the expectation. And just because, like, that doesn't mean it was a good performance. Like, we were expecting a bad defensive performance, and we kind of got then exactly what we expected. Like, it was not worse on defense than I expected. I guess the pass rush was a little worse than I expected, but honestly, the pass coverage might have been a tiny bit better than I expected. So it equaled out to about being what we expected on defense. That's why I come back to, like, much more concerned about only 16 on the Bears offense compared to giving up 30 on this Chicago Bears defense. Because both sides in their struggles dealt with some of the same issues of getting in their own way. And now we are 8 weeks into the NFL season, and the Chicago Bears are still having some of the same self-inflicted wounds and issues that are holding themselves back more so than opposing teams, beating them in that way. So we'll take a closer look at what's going on with the penalties that just won't go away. And I also want to turn our attention a little bit more forward to, like, do they need to make some roster and lineup adjustments because of not only the injuries coming into this game, but now the injuries coming out of this game That's next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by Gametime. The NFL season is back, and there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans and cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping up at checkout, it's really frustrating. But that's why I use the Gametime app. I've got it on my phone, and I've used it to go to Bears games, to go to basketball games, now the NBA season's coming back around, comedy shows, concert events, theater shows, you name it, they've got it all on Gametime. It's fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee, where you'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay at checkout. Nothing that jumps up at the very end. That's why I love it. I use it, and I can't recommend it enough. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. And I know we're in the thick of the NFL season, but now the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps everything exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So both the Bears offense and defense struggled. One we expected more struggles from, the other we were not expecting such struggles from. But both sides, I guess I don't know if I can say equally, but both sides dealt with penalties in a way, and certainly self-inflicting wounds, in a way that's the most frustrating aspect of any of this. All right, it's one thing to sit there and say, you know what? Hard to tackle Derrick Henry at the goal line. Sometimes they have good players, and their good players make good plays. Or, you know, sometimes it's hard. I guess they don't really have a lot of, like, Roquan Smith's going to make some good tackles. Like, sometimes you can say their guy on a given play was better than your guy, and you tip your cap and say quality opponent. It's the NFL. Every team is good and has good players. But it's now been 7 games, 8 weeks into the season, and the Bears still have 11 penalties for 79 yards. And it's all over the board, too. Like, that might be the more frustrating part. It's not just, Colston Loveland keeps having false starts. He does. It's been a couple weeks in a row where he's false starting. And for him, the rookie excuse is running out. Like, okay, first couple of weeks of the season, rookie might have some false starts. I can live with that. Week 8, no more rookie false starts. Sorry, figure it out. You're an NFL, you're a pro now. You're not just a pro. You're a top 10 pick. Or was he 11? Regardless, you're no 10th overall pick. You're a top 10 pick. Figure it out. Hear the snap count and figure it out. Cole Kmet seemed to not be able to do it either, although he was hurt, so he couldn't in this game. But, like, I don't know what it is about these tight ends. Learn the snap count, confirm it, double check it, remember it, execute it. Not that hard. It would be one thing if it was just, okay, some rookies having some false starts here and there. But it's so many different things across the board in so many different key situations. It started with a Loveland false start, but then as you go a little bit farther into the game, Caleb Williams gets the intentional grounding, and then that backs you up, and DeLassa down, and all that stuff. And then Torrey Taylor has a great punt down inside the 1, but one of your linebackers couldn't line up properly close enough to the line of scrimmage, illegal formation, undoes the punt. Ravens get better, field position, drive down and score. Like, it's just, I think they end up with a field goal on that drive, but still, like, how are we in week 8? And your punt team isn't lining up on the line of scrimmage correctly, right? It's one thing if you're like, okay, offensive tackle got beat, so he grabbed on and held. Okay, like, that's in the course of a play in a game penalty, guy makes a technique mistake. Or like cornerback's getting beat in coverage and he grabs them and it's a pass interference. I'm not saying those are allowed or excusable, but like those are at least in-game action thing where it's bang, bang, bullets are flying. False starts, illegal formation stuff, not acceptable whatsoever. And even like Caleb's first intentional grounding, man, where he just throws it to the sideline straight horizontally. It was almost a lateral, which could have been even worse. Like, you got to know Caleb. Like, again, number 1 overall pick quarterback. He's been playing quarterback his whole life, right? This is not a new thing. Intentional grounding is not a new thing. And I get he's trying to throw it away, and because he sometimes takes too many sacks. So now he's trying to throw it away, but then he still takes the hit, and you lose the down and the yards from the penalty. It's just as bad as a sack at that point. You don't get any benefit. So, like, he's still got to learn and adjust that. But then, then you get some of the other technical stuff. Nahshon Wright gets an illegal use of hands in there. Joe Thuney gets a full start in the second half. Like a 12-year pro or whatever he is, a 4-time Pro Bowler, a probably maybe future Hall of Famer, 3-time Super Bowl champion, Joe Thuney, false starts. Like, that to me feels bigger and not organizational, but certainly like team-wide stuff here. Jonathan Ford, defensive tackle, lines up off sides with his helmet clearly past the ball. Just turn and look. Like, it's basic, not only basic football rules, but basic discipline stuff. Like, I get Andrew Billings gets the encroachment because he's trying to jump the snap count. He's trying to make a play. Like, I have a little bit more room for, again, like understanding a penalty like that. I mean, your back's against the wall, you're trailing, you're trying to, I guess I kind of get it. But man, and I don't know what Ben Johnson and the coaching staff are supposed to do, because they've been harping on this from day one, from OTAs, mandatory minicamp, training camp, preseason games. They are blowing practice dead when somebody's not lined up right, or when there's a false start, when there's like they've been clearly making this a point of emphasis, and it's not getting through. So like I don't know what they're supposed to do, but it baffles me and boggles the mind that this coaching staff is so good at so many other things, and this roster is experienced enough, right? This is not rookies across the board making these mistakes. It's not even injury replacements making the mistakes. Like Loveland's been, if it was Nick McLeod's in for his first game, Jalen Jones played his first game for the Bears in the cornerback position this week. If he has a penalty, maybe you understand, okay, it's his first game out there. But like, this is all guys who have been playing and have played multiple games this season. Andrew Billings, Jonathan Ford, Joe Thuney, Nahshon Wright, Colston Loveland, like Caleb Williams. There's just no excuse, and I don't understand it, and it's super, super frustrating. It's more frustrating than anything else about this team, because those are you getting in your own way. You miss a throw, you miss a block, okay, technique, players have up and down moments, but like, this is such a controllable, self-inflicted wound. It's just absolutely unacceptable in any way, and Ben Johnson says as much and coaches as much, and I don't know what else they can do. I don't know how else they can get it through the players' skulls that this is just not how this football team should operate. They lead the NFL in false starts. They said that on the broadcast. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And I don't understand it. I'm curious to see how they approach any potential changes from here, especially due to the injuries. When you add in, Dominic Robinson and Shamar Turner's injuries, Luther Burden was ruled out with what they said was a concussion in this game. If that's going to force any changes, because now, again, on the defensive line, if it's just Daniel Hardy, you're going to need another backup edge rusher. Is that just Austin Booker coming off injured reserve? Is that enough? Or do you need to bring back Tano Passanio, who they released as a veteran? It still feels like they have yet to properly address that position, and I'd like a more significant external addition there. And if Tyreek Stevenson is going to, now Kyler Gordon's on injured reserve, and if Stevenson's still going to miss time, you need another cornerback. I mean, right now you got Wright, Jalen Jones, Nick McLeod, and Josh Blackwell. They called up Dallas Flowers from the practice squad. So I guess you got 5 guys, but you're going to need something else there at cornerback with all these different players hurt here. I want to see if Ryan Poles finally does something to address some of these long-standing known positions of need, or when they say, well, we got practice squad guys, we got injured reserve guys, that'll be fine, they'll do enough, and then do they struggle again against the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday? I have my concerns. We'll see how they approach it as the week goes on. And you can be sure any big transactions they make, we'll break it down for you right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for a second listen today, Be sure to check out the Locked On NFL podcast for a double dose of football talk. Tyler Rowland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, and then in the afternoon, a second episode comes out when Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end your day. So find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Come on back tomorrow and make Locked On Bears your first listen once again for another opportunity to bear down.